Good evening, everybody, and welcome live here to the Main Street Pub in Allendale. It's the GVSU Football Weekly Report with head coach Matt Mitchell. Underway as the Lakers into Week 11, the last regular season week. Grand Valley on the road at Wayne State this Saturday. But fresh off a double overtime win, DJ Foster, 62-56. The Lakers undefeated in a big show tonight.
Yeah, it's the GLIAC Championship edition as Grand Valley State won the GLIAC Championship with that wild 62-56 double overtime win. We'll dive into that with head coach Matt Mitchell. And we'll also bring on quarterback coach Matt Vitzthum and a special one with long snapper Jay Flemming. Be interesting to hear some of the intricacies of the long snapping position. We'll have that later.
That's right, a job that you want to do well and nobody hear your name, right?
Until
sometimes that could be when something bad happens. Well, the Lakers with that undefeated record, we'll be back to talk about that big win in double overtime over Saginaw Valley State. This is the GVSU Football Weekly Report with head coach Matt Mitchell on the Grand Valley Sports Network.
We were born here. We grew up here. Raised our kids here. Went to school here. We live here. We are the home team.
Welcome back into the GVSU Football Weekly Report with head coach Matt Mitchell. That was one of the many touchdowns in last Saturday's 62-56 double overtime victory over Saginaw Valley State. A tremendous victory, double overtime win. You get the GLIAC Championship comes out of it as well. Grand Valley State, your 2016 GLIAC Championships, undefeated at 10-0, number 2 in the country, number 1 in the Region 4 rankings, which we'll talk about later on in the show. We bring in head coach Matt Mitchell. And Coach, that was a wild one. How do you even start to explain what happened last Saturday against Saginaw?
I don't know if an hour would get it done. So there's a lot of things that occurred in that game. I'll be honest with you. The word escaped had been used for a couple of earlier games. I didn't agree with that. I would agree with the Saturday we kind of escaped. We did not play necessarily that well in all three phases. I think we had some hiccups on the flip side. I think we made enough plays on all three phases to get the job done. So you go through a season. You go through a season in the GLIAC. If you're going to go through undefeated, there's going to have a game like that. I mean, that's just the odds of things and the way things work out with the competitiveness of this league. And I thought Saginaw, really did a good job. Really came to play. But at the same time, we really hurt ourselves. Specifically in the first half, I was very upset with our performance in the first half, and we just didn't capitalize on some opportunities. Really to take away with it, but kept battling, kept fighting. We definitely were dealt with some adversity throughout the course of the week, and then also on Saturday afternoon we had some adversity. And our kids kept battling, kept playing. We never pointed any fingers, and found a way to win against a rivalry school. I talked about that a lot, a rivalry school on the road, and kept our record perfect. And then it was really good, I think, for our locker room to celebrate that win with the championship trophy. That was really neat for our guys to have the GLIAC championship trophy in the locker room after the game.
Mitch, take us inside the huddle, tail end of regulation. You guys appeared to shift gears, and you have all that inside information of what you want to do. Bart had some great moments throwing the football, had some mistakes too, but you guys go to the run, and it's exclusively to the run. Help us understand kind of what went into that thought process.
Well, like you said, that wasn't because of Bart at all. When you actually look at, Bart, he had a lot of explosive plays. Obviously, there are the 4 picks, and some of those are on him, and some of those on our entire offense in terms of the structure of things. We started that drive. The score was tied at the start of that drive. I don't know that we necessarily had the intent to run the ball 16 straight plays. But as the series started to unfold, Steve, we were having a lot of effect. Like you could feel the line of scrimmage surging. You could feel it moving. And, at that time, we did have some injuries at the wide receiver position. It wasn't like we could go 4 wide receivers. I mean, the strength of our team was at the start of the drive, as it started to play out, was our offensive line, our 2 tight ends, and our 2 tailbacks. And so we stuck with kind of the hot hand, and we kept calling the plays. They kept trying to change the front and bring in some pressures, but we just kept, kind of matriculing down the field. Obviously, the 4th down call, I just felt like we need to be aggressive here on the road. I mean, that was a risky call at that point in time, but we had been surging. We had made some plays. We got the 4th down call. And then I think, realistically, we didn't start the drive thinking, well, let's bleed this thing out and not leave a lot of time on the clock. But we started having discussions on the headset as we started getting further down. Hey, let's use a little bit more of the play clock and let's keep grinding this. Even if we have to kick a field goal, try to leave enough time on the clock that they couldn't come back. And we just kept running it. And obviously, we were going to attempt to try to, maybe center the ball up for a field goal attempt, and it was just the runs were working. And eventually we scored the touchdown. And to be honest with you, at that point in time, we scored the touchdown. I look up, there's a minute and 20 some change on the clock. I think they got, 2 timeouts maybe at that point in time. I thought, well, here we go. Our championship defense will get the stop. And that didn't happen. I was very disappointed in that last drive. Our 2 drives defensively at the end of the half end of the game were bad. But credit to our kids. They score. The air comes out of the thing again, and they chose to go on defense, and we ran it right down their throat. And I can't tell you how important that first overtime possession was, getting all those runs and that touchdown. That was really critical for just the psyche on the sideline.
Yeah, it's interesting how that worked, because obviously we follow the thought process of Saginaw that they want to respond to whatever you do, but it worked against them because you guys with the powerful running attack seized the momentum right back, didn't you?
Yeah, we did. And I think, again, that's a credit. That's the right call as a coach. You want to go on defense first because you want to know what you can do offensively to win the game. And so they did it. We scored, and then it's like, okay, go out and get a stop. Obviously, you're talking about on your defensive side of the staff, it's going to be 4-down territory because I got to score a touchdown, on that end of things. And they scored. So we flipped to the other end. And, I think that was, a huge play for us, was potentially, their holder wasn't out there. When they lined up for a field goal attempt, their holder wasn't out there. I don't know where he was. I think their coaching staff was looking for him. They have to burn a timeout. I'm sure then at that point in time, the whole staff is saying for Saginaw, hey, we're not stopping them, so we got to go. Mm-hmm. And they decided to go for it on a 4th down. And even though we'd been bleeding a little bit on the defensive side of the ball, both at the end of regulation and the first overtime, we came up with just a huge stop. Just a huge stop and kept them short of the 4th down. And then even the second overtime, we're trying to get the ball centered for Skipper. And we kept getting the yardage, and we scored a touchdown even when we were trying to center the ball up at that point in time. We were talking about on the headset, hey, on 3rd down, we're going to try to kick the field goal on 3rd down because you botch it or something, you get the chance on the 4th down. And here we go. We got the 1st down. On the 2nd down call, we got the 1st down. And so a lot of adjustments were happening. I'm really proud of our kids, and I'm also proud of our staff. it was off script. That's not how you thought the thing was going to, go heading into it. And you had the injuries, and you had the flow of the game, and we were able to make some adjustments. And, I think it kind of showed a little bit of the character of our team.
Here with head coach Matt Mitchell on the GVSU Football Weekly Report. This segment brought to you by Cardinal Buses. Go in comfort, go in style, and go green. Go with Cardinal Buses. And Mitch, I think maybe if you had co-MVPs, I think Marty Carter and Terrell Dorsey certainly in the second half and the 2 overtimes. Marty with 200 yards rushing, Terrell with 73 on just 12 carries. But you also had Nick Dotson with 2 touchdowns, Matt Williams with a touchdown, and Erston Smith, 6 catches, 162 yards, 2 touchdowns, and obviously there's more of an underlying story there as well. That's an incredible effort considering what he's been going through.
No doubt. He didn't play in the Findlay. His mother had suffered kind of a setback in terms of had a heart attack after the Hillsdale game, and then he didn't play the week of Findlay, and then the family made the decision to terminate life support, and that happened early in the week of this game. And so we got the news of that, and he had been back home with his family in Elkhart, Indiana, and so we knew the right thing to do was to support him. And so we had a busload of guys that coaches and players. I think we had about 45 guys that loaded up a bus, and we headed down to Elkhart, Indiana on Friday. And we attended the funeral. Then we came back and kind of joined up with the rest of the squad and drove over to Saginaw. So there was a lot of discussions about Erston. A very difficult, emotional time for him and his family on Friday. Should he play? I think he was pretty adamant that he wanted to play on Saturday. And, kudos to him. I don't know that we had him necessarily game planned or scripted that much to play, but when you lost Brandon Bean in the first quarter and you lost Matt Williams early in the third, he had to. That was a guy, and I think he stepped up, and that was unifying for our team too in regards to the funeral on Friday and all the emotions that were packed into that. I think that's something that kind of happens within a team that's unique, and it was the whole culmination of that 48 hours. It was a very emotional and unifying time for a football team.
Mitch, thinking back on this game as I'm watching it unfold, you guys as coaches know far more. How did the
I'm not sure about that. But go ahead.
how did the defense play in this game? Because they had a lot of short fields to work with. They did give up big plays, but they came up with big plays. So how did you think they played?
Yeah, I mean, first of all, they got put in a couple bad spots. Obviously the first interception, Saginaw had the ball in the 6. As a defensive guy, you want to try to hold them to a field goal. We had the 21-7 lead. We get a roughing the passer penalty, which was hurt us and got back there, and then. We got the ball in the 1, and we can't punch it in. We get the fumble, and our defense shouldn't even had to probably go on the field, but they did, and they kind of had a really sloppy possession. Then we got another bad field position on the pick, and we gave up a touchdown run. But I think, the 2 plays of the game besides the 4th down stop, the other huge play of the game is we give up a pick. Martavius runs the guy down and gets him out of bounds at the 1. We get 2 tackles for loss. They try halfback pass. Dante Carey picks it off and comes all the way back. So how do I judge their performance? Some really, really, really highs and some really, really, really lows. There were some times that we were extremely frustrated, everybody, coaches and players, because when you look at the stats, like we did a pretty good job on 3rd down statistically, but man, there were some key 3rd downs, Steve, that we could not get off the field that led to scoring drives. And, and then, like I said, the end of the half was bad. That was a bad defensive series. And then the number one thing is, like, our defense, you got somebody down 7 with 1:20 on the clock. I mean, that's when you got to pin your ears back and get to work. And we gave up a score on that drive, and that was probably, one of the worst drives in 2016 from our defensive side of the ball, that way. So yeah, there's some humility, I think, on the defense. Like, we've been a pretty dominant defense for most of the year, and we didn't act like that on Saturday. We didn't play necessarily like that at all the time. There were some times we were, but not all the time, and so consequently, some room to improve, no doubt.
Grand Valley escapes, as you say, Coach, 62-56 in double overtime at Saginaw Valley. The Lakers undefeated going into Wayne State on Saturday. Up next, we'll talk with quarterbacks coach Matt Vitzthum. He's going to stop by and chat with us again. This is the GVSU Football Weekly Report with head coach Matt Mitchell here on the Grand Valley Sports Network. We'll be right back.
We were born here. We grew up here. Raised our kids here. Went to school here. We live here. We are the home team.
And we're back live inside the Main Street Pub here in Allendale. Steve Lloyd-Jones, along with DJ Foster, and quarterbacks coach Matt Vitzthum, our guest, as we mentioned. And great to have you again, Coach. As you had a wild ride up there with us as well, broadcasting the game. I look to my right, you're over there, and sometimes smiling, sometimes not. Assess the afternoon for your guy there behind center.
Yeah, talk about a roller coaster ride on Saturday night. We figured rivalry game, we might as well make it interesting, and nobody made it more interesting than the quarterback on Saturday. But, obviously, like I said, had some really good plays. Can't discredit the kid, threw 5 touchdown passes. Real proud of him in the first half. Came off a horrendous decision on his first interception, and I think at the end of the first half was maybe like 9-10 or something like that, and with 3 touchdowns, and, really responded. And again, hit a bumpy third quarter, and, still found a way to hit a couple of touchdowns for us in the second half. And, roller coaster at best is what I'd say.
So take me through your thought process when you guys decide to, for all intents and purposes, abandon the pass and have Bart turn around and hand off to Marty and Terrell the rest of the game.
Yeah, I think Coach Mitchell hit it on the head earlier. I don't really think we went into the drive with that intention of, hey, let's take the ball out of Bart's hands. I think it just kind of happened. You know, we started running the ball, and like Mitch said, you could feel our sideline, and you guys could maybe tell sitting up there, there's a lot of hands on the hips from the defensive guys, and you know, we were just running it really well. And, you know, obviously when you got a two-headed monster like Terrell and Marty, they just kind of got in a flow. Coach Morrison's guys got in a flow. You know, I think we crossed midfield one time, and Coach Morrison came on the headset and said, hey, you know, should I pop a throw out here? And I think Coach Mitchell, Coach Ginn, and myself all immediately said, absolutely not. Keep running the football. And, you know, he stuck to it.
Don't fix it.
Yeah, exactly. And, you know, they punched her in, and, you know, it was crucial. Those guys, you know, hats off to the guys up front. You know, those are the guys that don't get any credit. And, you know, you look at the snaps played this year, those guys have played, you know, 700-800 snaps, and nobody talks about them or gives them any love. But I tell you what, you know, Coach Morrison and our offense and our program are definitely proud of those guys. I mean, they won the game for us at the end there.
No question. What we could see from high above the field was the surge. You could just see a couple, 3 yards off the line of scrimmage, our line pushing them back. Now, you know, obviously we can't measure yards before contact, but your backs, I mean, they had a running start, had 2 or 3 yards before they were getting hit, so it was just dominating.
Absolutely. You know, Coach Morrison and everybody in our program, everybody feels that if Martavius and Terrell can get to the second level of the defense, you know, without changing direction much, and they can get ahead of steam, we're pretty tough in the run game. We're pretty tough, you know, so you could see it up top. You know, we were pushing the line of scrimmage, and Martavius and Terrell, I mean, they just in and out, and they were pounding it, so.
Talking with quarterbacks coach Matt Vitzthum tonight on the show. Matt, help us understand, you know, for Bart, the offense, was it a case with the picks where it's miscommunication, or was Saginaw doing something different than other defenses hadn't done?
Yeah, I mean, it's a good question. I think the stats tell a lot. If you look at the stats, the average yards completion by Bart was about 25 yards. Okay. So a lot of the things that they were doing, they jumped a lot of underneath routes. So therefore, a lot of over-the-top balls were there all night. And, you know, it does take some courage to just keep throwing it over their head, over their head, over their head. And that's what we probably needed to do. Now, he made a couple of poor decisions in the midst of that. But if you look at the stats, you know, Saginaw's defensive backs and linebackers, they jumped a lot of things underneath that I don't really necessarily we thought they would do. And that's why you saw Erston Smith over the top of the defense a bunch. You saw Matt Williams, you saw Nick Dotson early in the second half, because they took a lot of things away from us underneath, and it forced us to throw the ball over the top. So, you know, we made some very poor decisions, but that's the best thing about working with Bart. He's in there on Sunday, not looking for an excuse. He's looking for a solution to what happened and why it happened. And you know, it's awesome coaching a guy like that. I'm confident. You know, I think our team, our coaching staff's confident that he's going to come back strong for us this weekend.
Vitz, we haven't caught up with you since earlier in the season, so we really couldn't judge Bart by freshman year and sophomore year. Now we're 10 games in. You can probably assess it fairly. I mean, last year he obliterated the school record for passing yards in a year by over 600 and had 45 touchdowns. Now clearly he has 5 more games on his resume from last year. When looking at this year, assess his year. Now, also, he didn't have Marty Carter doing what Marty's done. I mean, he's third all-time in rushing in a single season. So what do you think Bart's overall year has looked like?
Yeah, you know, we've done some really nice things. You know, at times we've hit some lows too, but I think you hit a lot of it on the head. You can't look at Bart's stats and say Bart's had a worse year just based off of statistics. We're a better offense than we were last year because we're more balanced. You know, we have Martavius, we have Terrell, we have a lot more confidence in the run game than we had a year ago. And that's made us better as a whole. Now, that sometimes maybe take away from what Bart's stats say. You know, you don't get to see him drop back and throw as much, but that doesn't mean we're worse off. You know, I think Bart took a huge step forward for us this year as far as understanding the whole offense. You know, there's a lot of run plays that you guys don't, you know, a lot of people don't understand. He's getting us into a lot of run plays based on the look that we're getting. So I've been proud of him for that. I've been proud of the way he's played. But more importantly, I've been proud of the way he's bounced back from some adversity. We faced some adversity in some of these last, 3-4 games. We've gone down and we've responded with touchdown drives, and a lot of that starts with him. So I've been pretty proud of him this year. Hopefully we got a long ways to go, or a few more to go here, and he can keep growing every week.
No question about that. Again, in that game, we've celebrated the depth, you guys as a team have had this year, and it really showed up on Saturday in your wide receiver core. How did that impact your play calling, your attacking style with Bart when you lose 2 of your top 4 guys, and each of them has a different skill set? So how did that play into your strategy?
Yeah, I mean, those two guys go down, most teams in our league, most teams in Division II, or even at that matter for Division I, I mean, they're going to be a hurting unit. And, we didn't blink. We got Erston and Nick, and we had some guys step up, John Mark Anderson, Jalen Bryan, Austin Parity, that didn't blink. We're ready to go and stepped right up for us. And, I credit Coach Morrison and guys on offense. We didn't change a bit on offense, besides obviously down the stretch we ran the ball. But like I said, I don't think that was planned. We were going to throw the football if that's what they gave us. And, our kids on offense, that's the awesome thing about coming to work every day. Everybody just, next guy in, let's roll this thing, and everybody does their job, and they try to do it to their highest ability.
Vitz, 62 points in a GLIAC championship. It was a great Saturday, and we hope to have many more of those throughout the rest of the year.
I'm with you, man. Let's do it.
Thanks so much for joining us. That's quarterback coach Matt Vitzthum here on the GVSU Football Weekly Report. When we come back, we'll bring back head coach Matt Mitchell. We'll start looking at Wayne State, a noon start in Detroit, the Lakers and the Warriors this Saturday. Coming back for more of the GVSU Football Weekly Report. It's all presented by GVSUTeamShop.com right here on the Grand Valley Sports Network.
We were born here. We grew up here. Raised our kids here. Went to school here. We live here. We are the home team.
Welcome back in. GVSU Football Weekly Report with head coach Matt Mitchell, DJ Foster and Steve Lloyd-Jones here with you. Grand Valley State and Wayne State coming up this Saturday, a noon start, the regular season finale between the Lakers and the Warriors. And Mitch, it's time to talk about Wayne State here in this opponent breakdown brought to you by Kent Equipment, solutions that turn work into play. And just a few weeks ago, this was a Wayne State team that was in the playoff hunt and looked like they were going to have some football in the postseason as well. Now they've played a couple of tough opponents these last few weeks. Went to Ferris State, went to Ohio Dominican, lost both of those. Now have to come home for you guys, and it appears their postseason hopes are shot, but that doesn't mean they're going to come out any less ready for you guys, just same way Saginaw Valley State did last week.
No doubt, and I think we're looking at another senior day. I think that played a little bit of factor with Saginaw. That was senior day for them, and this will be senior day for Wayne State. And like you said, they're 5-0 at home. I think that's something that hasn't been probably brought up. Their 3 losses that they had, they're 7-3. The 3 losses have been on the road. Now they've been to some really good football teams. They went to Ashland and lost, and then the last 2 weeks they went to Ferris State and lost, and then obviously lost last weekend at Ohio Dominican. So they're a team that's been really good at home. They have a style of play that I'm sure we'll talk about. It really involves running the ball and playing some great defense. So they'll be fired up to play us. And we went there last year. We had a really competitive game with them. Really big crowd. They had, I think, their single game record last year. We have a lot of kids from the east side of the state, so we're anticipating, really fierce competition. There's a wooden shoes trophy that we've kept in our possession for 20-plus years, but that'll be on the line also.
Yeah, a few weeks ago it was Hillsdale, maybe a little more similar style. Then a couple of weeks of the spread you go against, and now you're back here in Wayne State to that smash mouth, come at you, good running game, solid tight end to throw to. What is that like for you guys as a matchup? Is that good, do you feel like, or is that stretch you in different ways?
Well, I think this is a little bit like you said with Hillsdale, just in terms of the ball possession, the ball control, and what they're wanting to try to do. I do think it's a little bit different. It's a really run first, run second, run until you stop the run. They're not going to pass unless they have to. And that's led by Romello Brown. I mean, I think that's another byline of this thing is that you're looking at not only the GLIAC, the number 1 and number 2 rushers in the GLIAC with Romello Brown and Martavius Carter, but on a national level, Romello Brown is number 2 in the nation in rushing currently, and Martavius is number 3. So you got 2 and 3 in the nation matching off. They like to run him. He's a different style of back than Martavius. He's a 250-pound back that really gets downhill. They like to run a lot of things between the tackles. I think that if he has something that is a weakness, sometimes he's not a top-end speed guy. But he's amassed all these yards and done a great job. And they kind of had a two tailback system, and that's gone away with an injury to Demetrius Stinson. And now it's a one-man show. And they really try to avoid getting into third down situations. When you look at them in the GLIAC, they're not great on third down in terms of conversion, so they want to try to avoid those. But he's extremely talented. I would also say part of the reason they're getting these rushing yards is the offensive line. This is an extremely talented offensive line. We have had several NFL scouts come through our building, including one yesterday, and a lot of them are talking about their left tackle, Nate Thieker, as being a potential NFL guy. And they've got their two guards are really good too. This is a really strong offensive line tight end group. It's probably, in terms of all the teams we've played, I might rank it up there as the top offensive line unit when you look at all of them, the tight ends and the offensive linemen together. It's a really, really strong unit.
Here in the GVSU Football Weekly Report with head coach Matt Mitchell. And Mitch, so in their 3 losses, you mentioned they were all on the road. 36 points they gave up to Ashland, 42 points at Ferris State, 28 to Ohio Dominican. Obviously, those 3 teams are all talented, so that would be part of the equation. But what are you seeing these last couple of games, these losses? Is it just the injury to Stinson? Because certainly he's not giving up the 42 points to Ferris on defense.
No doubt about it. And I think when you look at their defense, it has always been a defense that's been a very aggressive, pressuring defense. And when you pressure, I think there's good things that can happen, but also if you get to the back level, there's not as many people left, and that's happened in a couple of these games. I think they've been pressure oriented at times, and some things have popped in the pass game, or some things have popped in the run game, and their safeties are new, and sometimes when it gets back to their safeties, they're just having a little bit harder time maybe making some of those plays. So it's a defense though. Still when you look at it statistically, they're pretty good against the run, and they do a good job. So we'll see how that goes down. I think we're cognizant of a lot of their pressure looks. They do a really good job, and we have to stay out of third downs. I mean, they're very effective on their defensive side of the ball, getting off the field on third down, because they run a 3-down package, and they have a lot of different pressure looks that they can bring at you and create some confusion with the protections, and they'll put a lot of pressure on the quarterback. So we just like they're going to try to avoid some third and longs and those situations, we need to offensively too. We can't be stuck in 3rd and 10, 8-9 times in this game. It's not going to work to our advantage.
I remember thinking back, talking about great offensive lines, when you guys went to Pueblo last year. Great line, great running attack, and really controlled them very, very nicely. Tell us about in this game against Wayne State where, Mitch, you're without a couple of your very good wide receivers. Without getting into your details of a game plan, how do you make up for that? How do you cope with that? You have 2 great guys. You have some tight ends to work with. How do you try and keep the passing attack going?
Well, I think the number one thing is you have to have some players step up. I mean, we can't sit here. It worked at the end of the Saginaw game, but you're not going to get into 2 backs and 2 tight ends, and that's just not our style of play. It's not who we are. It's not what we're 10-0. We need to remember we're 10-0 running what we do, and so. This is why you practice in spring ball. This is why you practice in fall camp, and you get guys ready to go. We're down a couple guys. Some other guys are going to have to step up. We're really going to look on. I think there's 3 guys that are going to have a few more opportunities. The John Mark Anderson's going to have some more opportunities. Austin Parity, Ryan West, and I also throw in Jalen Bryant there too. Those guys are going to have some more opportunities to step up and play. And they've got to make some plays. It is what it is. We can't head in there and throw every ball to Erskine Smith. That's not realistic. We have to spread the ball around. And when their numbers called, they got to step up, make some of those plays. So, we're missing Joe Robbins, too. He had suffered an injury in practice. So we're actually down 3 receivers that play, pretty significantly. And that just means some other guys got to step up. And then we get to that point, we got to be able to run the ball if we have leads and kind of close games out like we did last week.
Guys sure did a great job of that at Saginaw, no doubt about it. Lakers 10-0 taking on Wayne State this Saturday. Straight ahead after this timeout, we'll talk about the keys to that game, what Grand Valley needs to do. This is the GVSU Football Weekly Report with head coach Matt Mitchell here on the Grand Valley Sports Network.
We were born here. We grew up here. Raised our kids here. Went to school here. We live here. We are the home team.
What a back-and-forth victory for Grand Valley State, 62-56 at Saginaw Valley State, clinching the GLIAC championship for 2016 and moving the Lakers to 10-0 on the year. But now it's on to Wayne State coming up this Saturday. It's time for the Keys to the Game, presented by Fox Motors. Only the best. Mitch, you're 10-0. They're 7-3. They're 5-0 at home. You guys have two of the best running backs in the country. What are going to be some of the keys to the game? Well,
I think the rushing yards are going to be key at the end of the game. When you look back on the stat sheet, I think, we obviously have to hold them down, and we got to be able to run the ball. Talking about, obviously some of the things in terms of you're getting into later in the season, the weather, the opponent, injuries, things like that. You got to look at it. So, I don't know if this is just Martavius Carter against Romello Brown, but that's a big matchup. And total yards rushing is going to be really important. I think if we can get into some third downs and third and longs, that's an advantage for us. And they're saying the same thing on their side of the ball. And so if you can run the ball and stay out of those situations, not give up sacks, and, sacks get factored in the rushing, that's going to be critical. So, I would anticipate sans a bunch of turns over. Whatever team is leading in terms of the rushing column at the end of the game is probably going to be the team that's going to win the game. And I would say, special teams too. It's there was some up and downs on Saturday with that, and we've had to make a lot of adjustments this week with special teams. We lost our holder, we lost our punt returner, and we lost our kick returner in that game. We lost Christian Lumpkin for the season. We lost Matt Williams as our punt returner, and we lost Matt Williams as our holder. And those are little things, but they're going to make a big difference in this game too. And Wayne State is really good on kickoff return. It's a dangerous unit that they've scored on and created a lot of field position on. And so the running the ball, the field position, those type of things are going to be huge factors in this game when you look back on the stat sheet.
Well, and the way your offensive line has played throughout the year, especially Saturday with that win at Saginaw Valley, to me, they would seem to be another big key for you giving Bart time and then that running game.
Yeah, 100%. And I Coach Vitzthum to echo his sentiments. They've gotten better, and we're excited about that unit. It's a relatively young unit, Steve, when you look at the starting lineup. You have your anchor in there, Aaron Cox at center, who's a senior and has played basically 25 straight games. But you start looking at the other guys. We got two sophomores at tackle. We got a freshman at guard and a junior at guard, and our tight ends are juniors and sophomores. So I think it's kind of exciting too, because that was a group that was very inexperienced heading in. We're into week 11 now. They've continued to grow and develop and work together. And I think they got a lot of football left to be played, hopefully, as we continue on, and also for the future of our program. It's really nice to have that group, because it's been a couple years, being honest with you. We've been a little bit shaky up front. We haven't necessarily had all the pieces figured out. I think we're getting closer to getting that problem solved.
Lakers going for the undefeated regular season Saturday at Wayne State. Coach, up next, we're going to talk with one of your players, Jay Flemming, your long snapper.
Yeah, obviously just talked about special teams. Jay's been a big factor of things here the last couple of years. This is his last year at Grand Valley State, so we're going to get him on the show, talk a little bit about his ability to get the ball back there with some great times and what he does for a football team.
All right, Jay Flemming straight ahead. The GVSU Football Weekly Report with head coach Matt Mitchell, continuing after this on the Grand Valley Sports Network.
We were born here. We grew up here. Raised our kids here. Went to school here. We live here. We are the home team.
And we're back here inside the Main Street Pub in Allendale, the GVSU Football Weekly Report with head coach Matt Mitchell. Good to have you with us tonight as we get into our player interview segment. This interview segment brought to you by Country Dairy, the official milk of GVSU Athletics. And as mentioned, joining us is long snapper Jay Flemming.
Thanks, Steve. Appreciate the lead in here. Jay Flemming, pride of Jackson Lumen Christi High School. How are we doing tonight?
Great. How are you? Thanks for having me.
Appreciate you coming on a blustery Thursday evening. So tell us a little bit about, you have a unique skill set. You're a long snapper. And tell us how you got into that and how you developed that skill.
I do. Ever since I was a little kid playing rec football, even back then, I was the center on my team. So just kind of by default, I was the long snapper. And then I got into 7th, 8th grade, and the long snapper at the University of Michigan, Tom Pomerico, who's actually from Lumen Christi, and his dad, Frank Pomerico, was an assistant coach at Lumen. And I kind of saw him and thought, wow, I could do that. Obviously, I'm not the biggest center in the world. I'm not the biggest guy in the world. I'm not the fastest. So I really got into that and worked with Coach Pomerico, and then it just kind of took off from there. And then my junior, senior in high school got serious about recruiting, and then mastered that skill set as much as I could, and then took a visit to GV and fell in love.
Talk to us about the recruiting process a little bit, and ultimately why you chose GV. What were the things that attracted you to our institution? Sure.
The recruiting process for a specialist, especially, a long snapper, for me it was really, unique. I took visits and had interest from, Division I, Division II, Division III. So it was definitely a process. For a specialist, especially long snappers, it's, a lot of reaching out to coaches, a lot of, hey, here's my film, a lot of going to camps and recruitment camps. So it was a lot of that. And for me personally, I wanted academics to play a big part in my decision process. I wanted to go to a school, number one, where I would want to go if it weren't for playing football. So when I took my visit to GV, ultimately what it came down to, obviously we have a top-notch school here academically. That my professors have been great, and obviously the high-level football we've played has been excellent. Been on the biggest stage in Division II, and then ultimately what reaffirmed my decision was the interactions we have with the coaches and players. We have great team chemistry, and that definitely affirmed my decision when I stepped on campus.
So you're a long snapper on the punt team. Do you get frustrated when we have these games where we don't punt? Does that irritate you?
It kind of to a point, yes and no, because obviously you want to play, but when I'm not playing, that's usually good news for Grand Valley football, so I can deal with that. My family, on their hand, they want me to play, but again, they understand that. I think my dad, the last home game we had, it was 3rd down, and he was calling for a punt, so that's always fun.
He's trying to get you some tick. He's trying to get you out there. So I think this year, hands down, you have the most. You have the highest ratio of practice snaps to actual game snaps. I mean, your practice snaps are out the roof compared to the game snaps, but obviously serving a big role. You've had a couple different punters here in the past couple years, and had to, work through that. Does it really matter to you who's back there at the 14 yards catching the ball?
Obviously, it's good to have chemistry with guys you're working with, no matter the situation. And for me, from a practical standpoint, my aiming point is a little different depending on how tall the guy is. So the past punter we had last year, Jamie Potts, Colin Cribley, they're a little different in size. But ultimately, in the game or in practice, when I'm actually doing it, once I'm looking down the gun barrel and looking at them aiming, I don't see their face. I don't think about who it is. I'm just trying to get the ball back there as fast and accurate as possible.
So you went out with the senior class this year. This is your last year that you're going to be playing football, even though you've got more years of eligibility left, okay? And, again, that comes down to a lot of things you've been taking care of business from an academic side. So why don't you, fill all the listeners and everybody into what you've done to kick ass here academically and what you're planning on doing in the next step.
Absolutely. Well, so it kind of worked out for me, the amount of credits I have completed thus far, and my dream ever since I've been a young boy is to go to become a lawyer and to go to law school. And the way it worked out for me right now, I have enough credits where next summer I'll be able to graduate, and just based on my personal situation, I know that's the best situations for me, even though, as you said, I'm a sophomore on the field. So next year I'll be attending law school, and I actually just got my first application letter yesterday, ironically enough, from the team where the school we're playing this upcoming weekend. So I was really excited about that. And then, as you said, I was extremely gracious to walk on the field with the senior class, that being my last game. Gracious to you for that, as well as my, my teammates, the seniors of that class, being very accepting of that. So, excited about the future, but very much enjoying this season and what it has left.
Yeah, good for you. Talk about the transition. I mean, positional players go through it, but you come in the door, you're a long snapper, and you jump into the chaos of Grand Valley football as a true freshman. Talk about that transition and what was probably, the most thing that struck you the most about that.
Right. So I think in that kind of situation, I had an idea of how things would play out, and at some point they did, some points they did not. But like you said, when you jump into the chaos or something new, it's really crucial for me personally. I don't overanalyze the situation. I just try and go about my business and not really think about it too much and just do what I'm supposed to do, and the rest takes care of itself.
Cool. And talk a little bit about some of the relationships. I think it's kind of unique, and I know, and I recognize at times it's very difficult when you're a specialist, a kicker, a punter, a long snapper, in regards to the chemistry on the team. And you guys are a tight end unit, but talk about the overall chemistry in the locker room, and maybe some of the guys that you're closest with on the team. Drop some names on the radio show.
Right. Absolutely. As you said, we've got a very tight-knit group of specialists. 4 of us live together. Even beyond that, too, my freshman year, a lot of the freshman football players in our class lived at Robinson Hall. So I think me and Spencer Hirsch lived together, who's a kicker, Tyler Kukovic, Jacob Howe, Brendan McMahon, Raju Blackman. Then I lived with 3 other guys last year that were not specialists. And even, the locker room, we spend all this time together, regardless of position group. You're going to really get to know everyone. And it's been a great process so far.
Cool. Well, I appreciate everything you've done. Obviously, we're not done yet.
Yep.
I'm going to keep it going. And the less times you're on the field, the better for GV football. But we know when you're out there, it's always going to be positive in terms of your performance. So thanks for being on, Jay. Have a good rest of your year.
Hey, thanks for having me.
Yep.
Thanks for being here, Jay. Jay Flemming, their long snapper for the Lakers. We'll talk about the GLIAC standings right now going into the final week of the regular season, and the Super Region number 4, what that looks like here as well. This is the GVSU Football Weekly Report with head coach Matt Mitchell right here on the Grand Valley Sports Network.
We were born here. We grew up here. Raised our kids here. Went to school here. We live here. We are the home team.
Back here for the final time in the GVSU Football Weekly Report with head coach Matt Mitchell. Steve Lloyd-Jones, DJ Foster here with you. This segment presented by Modern Office as we look at the team landscape. Modern Office brings spaces to life. And there's a lot to look at. Mitch, normally in the past few weeks we've been talking the GLIAC standings and kind of what's going on throughout the GLIAC, but we want to look even a little bit further into the Region 4 rankings because we all know them. You're number 1 in the Region 4 rankings for the 3rd week in a row. But we want to kind of go throughout the rest of the regions for people who don't know. Midwestern State is number 2, Southwest Baptist number 3, Texas A&M Commerce is 4, Truman State, who you played earlier in the year, 5. Ferris State, who obviously you beat, is 6, and Colorado Mesa 7. Top 7 make it. The top seed, which would be us as of right now, gets a bye. 2 plays 7, 3 plays 6, 4 plays 5, and then it kind of goes on from there. Obviously, there was a little bit of a change from last week. Ashland dropped out despite winning big, 56-0, I believe, against Walsh, who obviously is not a strong team, so that didn't help them from a strength of schedule standpoint. But maybe what's the biggest thing you saw from last week's rankings until this week?
That switch, obviously. And I was, in the original rankings, I was a little, I guess, surprised that Ashland was ahead of Ferris, given that Ferris has such a high strength of schedule. But obviously, head-to-head competition mattered. And then last weekend, Ferris played Hillsdale, which had a significantly better record than Walsh did, and I think that played that. So I think when you look at the GLIAC teams, it would be interesting to see if Ashland can move up. They're going to go on the road and play a very good Ohio Dominican team that's really hot right now. And that'll be, if they can get the win, it'll be a huge road win for them. Won't be easy. And then Ferris is finishing up with Saginaw Valley State, and so not an 0-9 team or a 1-8 team, but a team that's around 500. So it'll be interesting to see what happens. I think for us, another thing to watch is to take a look at the number 3 and 4 teams in the region, Southwest Baptist and Texas A&M Commerce, and see if potentially those might flip. Southwest Baptist has a 1-9 Lincoln team that they're playing, so their strength of schedule is going to go down after this weekend. And Commerce is playing I think a 7-3 Tarleton State team. A 7-3 Tarleton State team that gave Midwestern State everything that they could handle last weekend. Midwestern State had to come back in the last 2 minutes to beat that team and get that win and maintain number 2. So I think there's a possibility that you might see, obviously we have to win. That's the most important thing that we can control. But if that were to end up happening, the number 1 seed, the bye, you might see a Midwestern 2, potentially a Commerce 3, a Southwest Baptist 4, a Truman State 5, and then it would really get interesting at the bottom when you start taking a look at the Ferris State, the Ashland. Colorado Mesa has a Azusa Pacific, which has a high strength of schedule for them and be a really big win. And then you got Mines down there too. So there'll be some jockeying in that for the RMAC, and there'll be some jockeying with the GLIAC towards the end of things. But certainly looks like if Ferris can take care of business, in all likelihood they're probably in.
And for the fans that don't know, if Grand Valley State wins this week, he would be hands down the number 1 seed in the region. You would get a very much needed bye, which you did not have at all last year.
Correct.
So next Saturday, the 19th, you would not play, and then you would play the winner of the 4-5 matchup, which, as of right now, Texas A&M Commerce, Truman State. For people who don't know, and it's kind of maybe a difficult process, but explain earned access, because that could come into play, obviously.
Yeah, so basically, if you're in a conference and there's enough teams in your conference that you are recognized as a conference with enough members, and even though maybe you're not in the top 7, if you're within the top 9 of your region, it's actually 10 now. If you're in the top 10 of your region, you automatically get bumped into the 7th spot because you were the best team in the conference winner. You get into that spot. So, earned access is a way for conference champion, because there's a few people out there that say, well, if you win your conference, you should be able to win the NCAA playoffs. And basically, the NCAA says you are, as long as you're within the top 10 of the regional rankings. If you're not good enough to be in the top 10 of the regional rankings, then you don't deserve to be in there. But if you are in the top 10 and you win your league, then that allows you to earn access into the playoffs. So I think that's obviously a great question. And for us, this game is really important for Grand Valley. We've been playing football here at Grand Valley for 45 years. This is the 45th season of football. There's only been 7 teams that have finished the season undefeated. And and this is from a historical context, like we were really good in the 2000s, really good in the 2000s, obviously. But this is important for our coaches and players to finish this thing undefeated. It's important for the bye. It's important for the home field advantage. I mean, there's a lot on the line. We're not taking the attitude here, well, we won the GLIAC. We know we're in the playoffs because even we get even at 10-1. We're not taking that attitude at all. We want to finish the thing 11-0. We want to be mentioned as a GLIAC champs and one of those teams in Grand Valley history that finished 11-0. I think that's a huge accomplishment. I don't think people understand how hard that is to do. That is extremely difficult to finish a season, especially in the GLIAC undefeated. And our guys want to do that, and they want to do it badly. So there's a lot of motivation for us here as we head over to Wayne on Saturday.
Coach, let's give you the Coors Light Ice Cold question presented by Alliance Beverage. Trying to give you something to challenge you here tonight. I would put this under the category of good problems to have. All right. You look over your scoring drives this year, you guys are definitely explosive. You've had 16 drives under less than a minute. We saw some of them on Saturday. 43 scoring drives this year in under 3 minutes. Do you guys score too fast sometimes?
I don't think there is such a thing. I don't subscribe to that theory. There is no such thing as scoring too fast. I'll take 7, however long it takes to get it. If it takes one play, we'll take 7. You put 7 on the board, we're going to love that. So that's the way I choose, I guess, I'm the head coach. That's the way we choose as a staff to build this team. We want to be explosive. We want to score. And, there's other people that employ different types of play and different things that happen. But, like I've told you guys a lot, if you listen to this show, the top two things that you look at college football, Division I, FBS, FCS, D2, D3, the top two statistics that correlate with winning, turnover margin, which we are the number one team in the GLIAC right now in turnover margin, and explosive play differential. And you be explosive and don't give them up, you're going to win a lot of football games. And so it also helps in recruiting, Steve, if you want to get off on that tangent. Like, I'm not going to be, you have a hard time recruiting. Kids are going to make a difference when you're 3 yards in a cloud of dust. Okay, that's boring. Nobody wants to do that. So if you want to recruit some wideouts, you want to recruit some quarterbacks, you want to try to recruit some skill guys, you pop on those statistics and you show what you're doing in terms of leading the league and scoring offense and what you're doing. It allows you to keep up that trend because that's fun. I don't care what you say right now. You talk about high school kids and Twitter and 30-second attention spans. A lot better to score in 30 seconds than take 5 minutes to score. We'd lose their attention at some point in time. So we're playing to the crowd.
Maybe a follow-up to that ice-cold question. Do the words mannequin challenge mean anything to you? I've heard whispers. I won't say from who.
I've seen it, actually. Our GV Golf came strong. Congrats to Coach Bissell for coming strong. There's been a couple other ones that have not been quite as good from our athletic department. But, I'm not going to orchestrate that. If they want to get together as a team and they want to do something great, and usually I play along with those things. But, yeah, if something comes out, it comes out. I've seen it on Twitter, and we'll see what happens. If GV football comes out with one, no, it is not endorsed or organized by the head football coach. That's been an organic thing within the team.
But would it get participation from you?
If they asked, and I proofread the content and understand that it was, we have a high standard in this building for how we do things. So it's not going to be something that's done poorly.
Not
if
a
we're going to do
ragtag
mannequin challenge, it's going to be done the right way, or else I'm not getting involved in it whatsoever.
Well, boy, big Saturday for you guys. What's on the line there? Regular season, but the goals that you have ahead. It's exciting to see what you've done and really what's possible.
Yeah, it's like I said, it's exciting. And we say this a lot of times within our staff and our team that great teams seize windows of opportunities, and I think we all feel like this. Grand Valley and football, and everybody that's kind of a fan of GV football. There's an opportunity right here in front of us. We got to go out and we got to seize it.
Lakers kickoff at noon. Coverage beginning at 11. My thanks tonight to Jay Flemming for stopping by and quarterbacks coach Matt Vitzthum. For DJ Foster and head coach Matt Mitchell, I'm Steve Lloyd-Jones. Thanks for listening here on the Grand Valley Sports Network. Have a great night, everybody.